Hey guys, thanks for joining me back with Middle Class Reactions. Dave Smith went on the Piers Morgan show and responded to his debate with Douglas Murray. This I'm going to make two separate videos out of this because, in good Piers Morgan fashion, the first part of this is Dave Smith responding to the debate itself. I want that to be its own video, like I did with Douglas Murray. Then I'll do a follow-up video with Dave debating the other guy on Piers. So let's go in and take a look, and let's see what Dave Smith says.
There is Dave Smith himself, host of Part of the Problem, who's a comedian and libertarian commentator. And he felt, of course, that he remained epically intact and will be joined a little later by Eric Weinstein. So let me start. First of all, Dave Smith, are you surprised, Dave, about the reaction to your showdown with Douglas Murray? And do you believe you won?
I'm not surprised at all by the reaction. I was surprised by how the debate itself went. But as it was going that way, I knew exactly what the reaction was going to be. I thought that was pretty clear. I think that
on that point, I feel like most people who came into that debate with a little bit more of an unbiased take on it, or they didn't necessarily. I mean, everyone's got their bias of like I am biased towards Dave Smith. I like his arguments a lot, but I did still like Douglas Murray. But I mean, 10 minutes into that debate, you could tell that Douglas Murray wasn't there to actually debate. You know, when he comes out, immediately starts attacking Joe Rogan. It was just, you kind of got a feel for the debate in those first 10, 20 minutes, and you knew how it was going to go.
You know, I would say this, what I thought was kind of strange about it was, and I know probably both of you we could all think of examples like this. Like there's been many times where people were challenged to a debate and they refused to debate them. Dr. Hotez with Bobby Kennedy comes to mind for me, but there's lots of examples like this. And and sometimes that's reasonable and sometimes it's not reasonable. Like I think in the case of Hotez, he should have debated Bobby Kennedy. But at the same time, I've been challenged to debate flat earthers and people with 150 followers, and I'm not particularly interested in doing that. So sometimes you'll see people who go, they'll take the path of like, look, this person's beneath me. I'm not going to debate this issue. I have no interest in doing this. And then sometimes people will agree to debate. I think Douglas Murray is the first person I've ever seen try to do both. And it made for kind of an interesting spectacle. If you're asking me if I think I won.
On another point there, Douglas Murray really didn't bring up any actual points. It was weird. He just kept making he kept making these arguments, theoreticals, and he kept making, like, he would make up an argument that Dave Smith didn't make, and then he would argue that point that Dave didn't make. He didn't really attack many of Dave's points, because I listened to that debate 3 or 4 times now on JRE. I can't think of many points that he just directly, like Dave would say. I guess the main one would be that, I guess the main one would be where Dave Smith talked about the blockade. It's one of the few points where Douglas Murray actually attacked that point. Now, Douglas was wrong, and it's not even like, oh, Dave made a better argument. Douglas Murray was just factually wrong on that. And then the other one was Dave talked about there's been more kids killed in Gaza than any other war, which Dave is factually wrong on. Now, I do think that Dave was talking proportionally, but I don't know. So, to be fair, because I don't know what Dave was actually meant by that. So, to be fair, on that point, Dave is factually wrong. So,
I mean, you can let other people can have their opinion on that. Obviously, I'm biased in saying that. I think that the overwhelming reaction that I've seen is much more that Douglas Murray lost than I won. I think I was there to debate.
Also true. Also very true.
Ukraine and Israel, and Douglas was there. He made it more of a bigger kind of watershed moment about the experts versus the podcasters, which was not what I thought we were going to do. But I think in doing that, it's hard to even say win or lose. You're going into an environment where you couldn't have worked harder to turn the entire audience against you. Obviously, by definition, the audience of the Joe Rogan Experience are on the side of the podcasters being allowed to talk about these issues. And as I said in the debate, I don't think the expert class has a very good track record.
Now, that's another very, very true point there. It was wild for Douglas Murray to go on JRE for the first time and approach it the way that he did. Even if you think Douglas Murray destroyed Dave Smith, even if you think that, which I don't think is the case, but even if you do think that, the way he went on JRE and immediately attacked Joe Rogan is wild. The amount of bad faith arguments he made was wild. Overall, it was just wasn't a great performance by Douglas Murray.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it, for what it's worth. I've had you both on my show, of course, a lot, and I enjoy watching you go at each other. I've seen lots of praise for you, Dave, indisputably, a lot. I've also seen, and we've just got a little summary of some of the lack of praise for you. Dave Smith was eviscerated by Douglas Murray, posted Henry Hobson. This is what happens when bluster and shallow thinking go up against a considered intellect. John Daly said watching someone like Douglas Murray absolutely crucify Dave Smith is a real treat. And Con Tomlinson, Dave Smith is ignorant, Douglas Murray crushed him. And the only reason I read those three out is it shows me that on social media in particular, when these kind of events happen, and I call them events because everybody watches them, when they do happen, there's very little middle ground. There are very little people who pop up on social media and go, you know what, on the one hand, I thought Dave made some good points. On the other, Douglas made some good points, and I really enjoyed the experience, which is probably what Joe Rogan thought. But no, we're in a very tribal world where before you guys even sat down together with Joe Rogan, they'd already decided you were going to be disintegrated, dismantled, and crucified. And similarly, a lot of people who like you and don't like Douglas Murray felt exactly the same way about what was going to happen to him. What does that tell you about discourse today, and what do we do about that, if anything?
Well, for the record, I will say, I mean, and I try to not live my life in on internet comments, but for this one, I just could not help myself. But if you look at the YouTube comments or the Spotify comments, I mean, it's overwhelmingly hostile toward Douglas. It seems to me that there's every account on Twitter with an Israeli flag and a Hebrew name in their bio certainly seem to think that I got my ass kicked. What's even more fascinating is that there'd be specific moments that people draw 180 degree opposite conclusions from. Like the one that I saw going super viral is him, asking me if I've ever been to Israel, and then kind of putting on a performance about how shocked he is that I haven't been there. And it was interesting to me how different people could look at the exact same moment, and one group of people could say, oh, this was Dave getting destroyed. And the other group of people could say, I mean, like, objectively, this is a non-argument. This doesn't win you any points in a debate. Like, I obviously fall into the second group there, but
that was one thing that I found a lot with Douglas Murray's entire JRE debate with Dave, was he had a lot of those that just were not arguments. I think what bugged me the most about that debate was that, and then the thing where Doug would make up an argument and then argue that instead of arguing what Dave was bringing up. I think those two things were probably what I disliked the most about that debate.
It certainly does show you how dug in certain people are, of course, which I think is to be expected in this most of contentious issues. But yeah, I don't know exactly what to take from that, but much like in the last 5 years particularly, it does feel like people are living in different realities. And even if you were to ask people to tell the story of COVID, I mean, like, what just happened over the last 5 years with this global pandemic? It's amazing how much people could have completely diametrically opposed understandings of the reality we just lived through. Now, I'm not being a relativist here. I think one of those sides is wrong and the other one is right, but that is where we are.
Funny enough, I would say the COVID debate is a lot more nuanced in reality than the two extremities take it, for what it's.
It's not shocking. I mean, Pierce Morgan in the early COVID days was super pro-vaccine, super anti-vax people. So yeah, that doesn't shock me that he hasn't really seen the light on that particular issue.
Worth. But let's bring in John Spencer, because he said.
All right, like I said, I'm going to cut this video here because I just wanted to get Dave's. Boy, Dave looks high as all get. I'm doing Dave dirty on that.
He was not in the.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, just can't. Just, I don't see how someone can watch the Dave and Doug debate and think Douglas came out on top of that. But everyone's got their opinion on it. So yeah, I'll be doing a follow-up video on this debate between these two guys. But yep, there is Dave Smith's response. Tell me what you think about it. Like, share, subscribe. That all helps me a lot. Comment down below. Do everything you know you need to, and I'll catch y'all next time.